Okay, so I'll take you guys through. It's a relatively quick idea and lesson because you know, it's Torah, but also it's Zoom. So I know there's some mixed feelings about Zoom. Okay, so let's get into this week's parasha. So again, it's a double. We just recently had a double with Chukat Balak, but hold on, it's gonna open up the screen. Okay, so my screen is obviously a mess. Hold on, okay. So this week is Matot and Mas'e. Okay, it's two parashiyot that are very connected. And I put underneath, do we learn from our mistakes? Because in the end, that's what they're both really about. You know, just as a question, Sophia, I'll talk to you because I could see you. Rivka, if I know that you could hear me, I'll ask you too. So it's better if I could see you. Great. So what does the word matot or mate really mean in Hebrew? Does anybody know? Sophia, what do you think?
A stick, like a staff.
Right, like a staff, right? And what does mas'e mean? Do you have any idea, Rivka? So matzeh, it's not a word we use so often, but it means like the travels of, okay? So these are gonna be the sticks and the travels. So it seems like a strange title, all right? But actually, let's look at how the word mateh is used in Parashat Mas'e, and we'll start to understand it a little bit better. So I'm gonna go to this source sheet that I actually made for adults, but I think you guys can handle it. Hi, Lauren, I see you. Okay, so I want you to take a look at the first paragraph here. This is actually an excerpt, it's a piece from this week's parasha. Now I highlighted every single time that they use the word mateh, okay? In Tanakh, there's a concept that if a word is repeated so much, right, in one section, it's trying to tell you something, okay? That word repeated over and over might be hinting to you to find it elsewhere in the Tanakh. Where else does it appear like this in Tanakh? So if we actually look at the paragraph, right, how is it using the word mateh? And it's even more true here that it wants you to look somewhere else, because mateh doesn't seem to fit here, okay? So if you look at bet, right? It says, Lemateh avotav tishlachu kol nasi bahem. What do you mean? Lemateh Yehuda Kalev ben Yefuneh. Lemateh Yisachar Yig'al ben Yosef. Lemateh Ephraim Hosha ben Nun. Lemateh ben Yamin Palti ben Rafua. Lemateh Zvulun Gad'i ben Sodi. How is it using the word mateh? What word comes into our mind? Lauren, oh, I don't know what she meant, but what word should be here that we're used to using? Like it's saying all the different what? What do you, like Rivka, what's Yitzhak, Ephraim, Zebulun, Yehuda? How is it using the word mateh? What word should there be there instead?
I can't see it.
I can see, okay, Sophia, could you see it? You can't see it either? Oh, it says I'm screen sharing. What can you see? Hold on, wait, let me try.
I see the other one.
Oh, I see what happened. Okay, do you see it now?
Yeah.
Okay. So I want you to look in this paragraph. This is this week's parasha, okay? Now, you see Lemate Yehuda is this person. Lemate Benjamin is this person. Lemate Zebulun is this person. What word should it really be? What are we used to saying? Calling Ephraim, Benjamin, Yehuda. What are these? They're all what?
Shevatim.
Right, they're all Shevatim. So why am I using the word mateh? A little context. What is it talking about here? Bnei Israel is about to walk into the land of Israel. They're getting ready to have the whole Sefer Yehoshua. Okay, we're in Bamidbar. And a lot of Devarim is just like prepping them for this. But they're all getting ready to leave the desert. Okay, and it talks about them using the word mateh. The only other time in the entire Tanakh that it lists them like this is at a time that's extremely, extremely horrible for us. I'm going to share, before I show it to you, I want you to try to see if you can guess it. Okay? So, oh, I'm sorry, hold on. Okay. So, do you guys remember the major Hata'im of Bnei Israel in the desert? Which one do you think we're about to talk about here? What are the major boo-boos, let's say, to use a baby word?
Chet
Ha'egel is definitely a big one, but nope. Any other guesses, Sophia?
HaMeraglim.
Exactly. So, Chet HaMeraglim is actually the only other place in the entire Tanakh where all the Shavatim get a mention, and they're called Matot. So if you look here, oh, I'm sorry, did I read that in reverse originally? Yes, I'm sorry. Okay, here was Bamidbar, here's our Parashah, and here's Chet HaMeraglim. It lists all the Shavatim, and it gives you one representative from each Shevet. In the case of the Meraglim, where are they going? Anyone?
Israel.
In the case of the Meraglim, they're about to go into Israel. In the case of right now, these are all the princes, right? All the war leaders that are going to lead Bnei Israel into Eretz Israel. Of course, where do the two stories split, right? What makes one good and one bad? The Meraglim are horrible. They basically say that Israel is the worst place ever. You should basically go back to Mitzrayim. Whereas this week, they actually step up to the plate, right? Even though their fathers made that mistake, they say, no, we're not going to make the same mistake again. We saw the entire generation before us drop to the ground, and they decide to be better. Now, just as something to go, if you're going into 7th grade, and I know Rivka is going into 6th, something you should always keep in mind, if a word is repeated this much in Tanakh, it wants you, it's screaming at you. Find the other places in the text where this word is also, and compare the two places. So that's what we did here. This is a very bad story. This is a very good story. Now, I think it's very important as middle school girls that you notice what's happening here. It's not just a story of they were good, they were bad. It's their fathers were bad and they're going to be better. How do you think that might relate to middle school in your own life? Like, what do you think you could take from this? Any ideas, like, of situations where you might do better? It's a big question. But there's going to be a lot of moments, and I'm sure you already know this, Sophia, because you're in 7th grade. But even going into 8th grade and certainly in high school, there's going to be moments when people that you feel very close to, including yourself sometimes, but really it might be an older sibling, or it might be somebody you look up to, they're not going to behave in the correct way, right? There's going to be mistakes that are made along the way. And the question that you want to be able to answer, right, is, will I do better? Even than people I feel very close to, right? Because that's the tricky part. There's going to be a lot of decisions that people make that don't have to be your decision, right? You have the chance to do a little bit better. Okay, so I wanted to do this with like a bigger group, like it would have worked if we split up into breakout rooms. But since it's the 3 of us, I think we could just do the activity like this. Let's like look at a typical middle school situation, right? So your friend tells you a secret in absolute confidence, right? You don't really mean to, but you tell another friend. Soon the whole school seems to know what your friend's secret is. Your friend is really mad at you. Your other friends are also upset that you revealed the secret. So basically, you did a chet hameraglim. You completely bombed this. You're dying in the desert. There's really little hope for you. what do you do the next time this happens? Because guess what? This is going to happen again and again and again. It's middle school, people get vicious, ditto in high school. So when this happens, right, what's the obvious answer? What do you do better? What do you think, Sophia? Sophia, what do you think? If this is what you did, right, what do you do the next time?
You don't tell.
What do you think?
You don't tell. I don't know. You don't.
Like you don't,
Other people.
I couldn't hear you. What would you say?
Like you don't tell other people.
Right, you don't tell other people. You probably need to make it up to that friend, right? It's a lot harder. It's a lot harder to do it once you've done the bad thing to begin with. But you also might say that by the time you do it correctly, right, it might mean a lot more to you. So at this moment in Tanakh, we're about to enter Israel, right? And we had the chance to do it before, but we didn't take it, right? So in your life, when these situations come up, when you see very clearly that you have the chance to do a little bit better, you should take it. I mean, I know, and it sounds like an obvious thing to say, but it isn't always obvious, right? Because telling a secret should be, oh, it's a secret, but people tell them all the time. You've told them over and over. I've told them over and over. So it's important to always keep in mind, when you do the right thing, especially when you've done the wrong thing in the past, you'll feel all that much better about your decisions. So that's the little piece that I took from Matot and Mas'e this week. Are there any questions or comments? Anything? Okay. So I have to tell you girls that this is actually the last week in SDA's middle school program because we had to have a group of 10 to continue. But I still think, always, of course, reach out if you ever have a thought about the Parashah, or if you would like to, or if you would like a Devar Torah for the weekend, I could always send you something. I have a lot of these little activities. And I hope to see you next year when we're in person. Just so I know, Rivka, you said you go to Flatbush, right? Right? And Sophia, you're on Mag and David or in Barkai? Mag and David. Oh, so Sophia, you might have seen me. I was in the 5th grade a few years. But okay, so if either of you plan on going to Flatbush High School, that's where I'll hopefully be for the next few years. But I want you to take this message with you for this weekend, which is, can we learn from our mistakes and how could we do better, especially with things that we've failed to do before. Okay, so thank you for coming, and I guess have a great summer. Okay?
Thank you.